So we have come to the fourth and final stanza in Psalm 139. Now, if you haven't checked out the previous stanzas, I definitely want to invite you to do so. Otherwise, this stanza could come across jarring and easily taken out of context. As usual, we are going to look at each line closely, but at the end, we'll also do a recap of the entire poem. Ready to jump in? Let's go. This fourth stanza divides itself into 3 strophes. Each are marked with an address to God. O God, O Lord, and O God. Notice also how these 3 titles are arranged as a chiasm. Here it means that it has an ABA format. Chiasms often have a function of bringing attention to what's in the middle, but it could also be purely decorative, like it is here. Let's look at the first strophe. This stanza starts out very strong, but before we respond emotionally, let's let him finish his thoughts first, so we know where he's coming from. If only you would kill, O God, the wicked. The next line immediately explains who he has in mind. And people of bloodshed, depart from me. People of bloodshed are people who kill and murder. This is not about accidents or self-defense. These are people who take human life lightly and kill without much thought. In stanza 3, he realized that God put so much love and attention in handcrafting him. In the same way, each and every person was preciously handcrafted by God with great love and attentive detail. That's why the writer concludes that it is so wrong for someone to kill another human being. And if someone kills another precious and beautiful creation of God, it would only seem right for God to punish this person by death. Who speaks about you with wicked intentions. So what are these wicked intentions? They take you as worthless. The word here for worthless also means of no value and even false, as in Exodus 23 verse 1. Do not spread false reports. The sense here is to say that God didn't really create people, and if he did, he didn't create every person with beauty and value. And even if God did, he doesn't really have plans to take care of each and every person. That's why it is okay to kill. And by killing someone, this hatred and offense is reflected back on God, the creator of all people. This feels a little bit like when I create something that I'm very proud of, perhaps a painting or any art project, or even a garden that I have been tending to and nurturing for months, and someone comes and intentionally vandalizes or destroys my work. Destroying the creation is a great offense to the creator, and killing someone is the same as hating God, the creator. So that's why the next strophe says, isn't it against those who hate you, O Lord, that I hate, and those who rise up against you that I loathe? With utmost hatred I have hated them. As enemies they have become to me. Out of a new loyalty to God and a deep appreciation for beauty in all life, he sides with God and considers all killing to be deeply wrong and disturbing. In this last strophe of the stanza, the writer pivots into something like a recap or restatement of where he is emotionally and mentally, because this strophe contains a lot of key connections back to the previous stanzas. In this first line, search me, O God, and know my heart. This is nearly identical to the opening line of the entire poem. In verse 1 it says, O Lord, you have searched me and you know. But a key difference this time is that the man has moved from a passive heart state to an active one. In stanza 1, God searched him and knew him. But there is an oddity to this statement. The opening line is almost phrased in a way as if he doesn't have much of a choice. You have searched me and you knew, as in whether I consent to or not. But in this closing statement, in stanza 4, he welcomes God's knowledge in his life with almost a sense of enthusiasm. God knows everything, and he presents himself like an open book, requesting to God, search me and know my heart. The next line, test me and know my anxieties. To test something is to reveal what is true. For example, in Zechariah 13:9, they tested precious metals by melting them. The fire melts away the impurities and reveals the gold underneath. And so this request to God, asking him to test him, acknowledges that Not only does God know everything about him, but there are parts of himself that he isn't quite sure about, and so he asks God to test him. What is he anxious about? The next 2 lines explains further. See if there is a way of idolatry in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting. The word here for everlasting is the same word as ancient, as in the way that was established for a very long time. In Jeremiah 6 verse 16, ask for the ancient paths, ask where the good way is, and walk in it. So when he asks God to lead him in the way of everlasting, this means he's asking God to lead him in the way of obedience. Back to the verse at hand. How interesting here. He invites God to see him. In previous stanzas, he acknowledges that God always sees all and knows all, and he asks God to lead him, knowing that God is always leading him with his hand, even when he is not aware or trying to run in the opposite direction. What's beautiful here is not that God sees and leads, because God is already doing that, but that he welcomes it and considers it precious and valuable. The word way in Hebrew also means path or road. And this word is very interesting because in stanza 1, he was living his day-to-day life, traveling and settling in all kinds of ways. And in stanza 2, he imagines hitting the road and running away from God to all kinds of destinations. The beauty here is that it's not the roads and the places you go that are important. He realizes that in life, what's most important is his way of life, whether it is one that turns away from God or one that is turned towards him, love and obedience. And that's why he makes these requests now. He is emotionally so in love with God, so he asks God to help him to live in a way in response to that. Looking back, stanza 1 was about God's intimate knowledge in our lives, but God was not portrayed as particularly close or intimate. Perhaps he only knows us from afar. You may notice this is reflected in his tone of voice as well, a little cold, a little distant. In stanza 2, the man discovers that God's presence is everywhere, so God is close to him, but he does not realize that God is particularly involved in his life. In stanza 3, he realizes God is not only close, but also intimately involved, from birth until the very end. And that's when he suddenly finds deep appreciation and admiration for God. So as each stanza progresses, he becomes more and more aware of God's knowledge, presence, and involvement in his life. In response, his tone of voice becomes more and more intimate and passionate, where stanza 3 is full of passionate praise, and stanza 4, intense loyalty, and a shift from being passively searched and known to actively inviting God to search and know and even lead him. God has always seen and known you because he was fully involved in your life since your birth. In fact, he created you intricately with his own hands, and he will continue to lead you in your life with good and beautiful plans. The invitation here from this psalm is for us to become more and more aware of God's knowledge, presence, and involvement in our lives. When those truths sink deep into our hearts, we become filled with a sense of love and intimacy. Love and also trust. We would trust that his way of life is good, that the path of obedience is good for us. It brings us joy and fullness. And this confidence leads us to a heart that surrenders to God and says, search me, test me, know me, see me, and lead me in the path of love and trust and obedience. There is so much for us to ponder and meditate on here. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, whatever path you're on, I want to invite you to think about God's knowledge, presence, and involvement in your life. And can you think of a time when you had particular awareness of them? Feel free to comment below. I would love to read and respond to them. And maybe we could even encourage one another in our experiences and awareness of God.